Princess Alara of Andavar had never known a life outside the palace. High towers, marble halls, and polished floors were all she had ever known. Her days were filled with lessons in history, etiquette, and diplomacy. Tutors praised her intelligence, but in truth, she had never led anyone. She had never faced danger. She had never commanded a single person. To her, the word leader belonged to stories, not reality. Yet, fate has a way of teaching lessons in unexpected ways. The Andavar system, a group of lush, resource-rich planets, had been at peace for centuries. Neighboring planets respected the royal family, and threats seemed distant, almost like tales from ancient books. But peace, Alara was about to learn, was often fragile. It began with the first warning, a strange signal intercepted by the Royal Observatory. The palace advisors called it a robotic swarm, a mass of automated machines traveling faster than any human fleet. They had no known origin, no allegiance, and no mercy. The advisors suggested evacuation. "We must protect the royal family first," they said. "Leave the planet, leave the people." Alara felt a knot in her stomach. She could leave, she could escape, and the advisors would applaud her safety, but something inside refused. She could not abandon her people. She could not turn her back on those who trusted her. "I will not leave," she said quietly at first, then louder when the advisors objected. "If we run, we lose more than land. We lose hope, and hope is what makes humans strong." The advisors were shocked. "Your Highness, you do not understand. This swarm cannot be fought. It is faster, stronger, and smarter than anything we possess. You will be putting yourself and countless lives at risk." "I understand," Alara said, "but I also understand people. I know what humans can do when they have no choice but to fight for their homes. We may be small, but we are clever, and cleverness can win battles machines cannot imagine." Her words, spoken with calm certainty, caused a ripple through the hall. Some advisors whispered that the princess had gone mad, while others sensed the truth in her voice. For the first time, Alara saw something she had never seen before in the palace. Hope sparked in the eyes of those who served her. Alara did not wait for permission. She began visiting the military quarters in disguise, walking among the pilots, engineers, and technicians. She asked questions about their equipment, about their strategies, and about the weaknesses of the swarm. She listened more than she spoke. Slowly, she earned respect, not because of her title, but because of her curiosity and courage. Among the small group of soldiers, one young commander named Jaren noticed her potential. He had fought in minor conflicts on the outer colonies and knew the difference between a true leader and someone who only gave orders. Alara impressed him not by her royal status, but by her attention to detail. She asked him questions that no one else dared, questions that revealed gaps in their plans but also possibilities. "She's not like other royals," Jaren whispered to a colleague. "She thinks, she listens, that's rare." Alara spent nights studying maps of the swarm's projected path, noting every river, mountain, and canyon. She thought about how to turn natural obstacles into advantages. Machines could move fast, but they could not understand the terrain the way humans could. She thought about decoys, traps, and misdirection. She envisioned a plan not based on brute force but on cleverness. Her first challenge came sooner than expected. The swarm attacked the outer colonies of Andavar, leaving panic and destruction in its wake. Evacuation routes were cut off, and civilians were trapped. Most leaders wanted to retreat further into the inner planets, but Alara insisted on action. She called together a small squad of volunteers, pilots, engineers, and even a few scientists. "This is our chance to prove ourselves," she said. "We may be outnumbered, but humans have something machines do not, imagination, and imagination can win battles." Her squad was nervous. They had never faced anything like this. But Alara's calm confidence, paired with a clear plan, gave them courage. They repaired old ships, retrofitted drones, and prepared supplies. Nights were spent in discussion and planning, with Alara encouraging ideas from everyone, no matter how small. The first mission was to rescue a colony surrounded by the swarm. They could not fight the machines directly, it would be suicide. Instead, Alara suggested a diversion. Using old mining drones reprogrammed to mimic human movement, they drew parts of the swarm away from the colony while the human team slipped through hidden routes. The mission was tense. Drones flew in unexpected directions, engines failed, and alarms rang out constantly. Yet the human squad adapted. They repaired what they could, redirected drones in real time, and stayed calm under pressure. Alara led by example, staying with the team, giving orders and improvising solutions when the plan went off track. By the end of the mission, the colony was safe. Civilians cheered, and the squad looked at Alara with awe. She had led them not with authority alone, but with intelligence, courage, and a willingness to share risk. Back at the palace, news of her success spread quickly. Messages from other colonies asked for guidance. Scientists and engineers wanted to join her. Even some soldiers who had doubted her began to respect her abilities. She had transformed from a sheltered princess into a leader who inspired others to follow. But Alara knew this was only the beginning. The swarm was vast, and every victory came with new challenges. Machines adapted quickly, and she had to think faster, plan smarter, and lead harder. Yet she felt a sense of purpose she had never known. Leadership was not about comfort or safety. It was about responsibility, courage, and hope. One quiet night, as she looked out over the city lights from the palace balcony, Alara reflected on how much had changed. She remembered the girl who had only learned etiquette and diplomacy. That girl seemed far away now, almost like a story she had read once. The princess who stayed behind, who refused to run, who chose to face danger with her people. That was who she had become. And she knew, deep in her heart, that humans had something no machine could ever match. Imagination, courage, and unity. That was the spark that would guide her army. That was the spark that would one day turn a princess into a commander who could change the fate of worlds. The first part of her journey had ended with success, but the war had just begun. And Princess Alara, once a girl behind palace walls, was ready to lead. After the first successful mission, Princess Alara's reputation began to grow across the Andivar system. News traveled fast, the princess who refused to run and led her people to safety. Citizens whispered her name with admiration, while neighboring colonies looked to her for guidance. Yet, Alara knew that one victory did not win a war. The robotic swarm continued to move across the outer planets, unpredictable and relentless. Machines struck in waves, destroying resources and cutting communication lines. Every colony they attacked was a test of human adaptability. Alara realized that she needed more than just courage to win. She needed an army trained in thinking creatively, a force that could turn every challenge into an opportunity. Alara spent hours in the palace strategy room, analyzing maps, studying the swarm's patterns, and consulting with engineers and scientists. The machines seemed to have no predictable behavior, but she noticed small details. They avoided rough terrain, moved slower in forests, and hesitated near water. "If we can use the terrain wisely, we can create traps and diversions," she told Jaren, her trusted commander. "Machines are fast, but they are limited. Humans are clever, adaptable, and unpredictable. That is our real advantage." With this idea, she began expanding her squad into a larger force. Volunteers from neighboring planets joined, inspired by her courage. Engineers, pilots, and technicians brought old ships, drones, and experimental devices, eager to be part of something bigger than themselves. Alara welcomed them, not as subjects, but as partners. She encouraged discussion and creativity, asking every volunteer for ideas, no matter how unconventional. One young engineer, Lyra, suggested using reflective panels to confuse the swarm's sensors, while a pilot named Terran designed a formation that allowed small ships to dodge attacks and support each other. Alara listened to all ideas, testing them in simulations and small-scale operations. Her leadership style was unusual. She didn't command blindly. She inspired, guided, and collaborated. The army grew in size and skill, but with growth came challenges. Supplies were limited, and the swarm adapted quickly. Machines began to detect decoys and avoided traps more often. Some volunteers doubted their chances, whispering that the swarm was unbeatable. Alara addressed her army one evening before a critical mission. Standing on a platform overlooking her assembled forces, she spoke with quiet confidence. "We are small, and our enemy is large. We may not have the fastest ships or the strongest weapons, but we have something they will never have: imagination, courage, and unity. Machines follow orders, humans create possibilities. That is why we can win. That is why we will win." Her words were simple, yet they struck deep. The army, inspired by her confidence and clear purpose, felt a renewed determination. Even those who had doubted her began to believe. The next mission tested everything they had learned. The swarm targeted a colony rich in technology, essential for building new ships and drones. A direct attack would be suicidal, so Alara proposed a clever strategy. The human army would divide into multiple small groups, attacking from different directions while using the terrain and technology to confuse the swarm. "Machines will not expect us to split," she explained. "They see numbers, not strategy. We will use that." The mission began at dawn. Alara led one group personally, navigating through mountain passes and dense forests. Other groups followed separate paths, coordinating through secure communication channels. The swarm advanced quickly, but each human group anticipated their moves, setting traps and creating diversions. One small group used reflective panels suggested by Lyra to make the swarm think there were more ships than actual. Another group used drone swarms to lure the machines into narrow valleys, where the human forces could outmaneuver them. Every action was precise, yet flexible. Humans improvised constantly, adjusting as the swarm responded. During the mission, Alara faced her first real moment of fear. A cluster of machines unexpectedly blocked her path, larger and more advanced than any she had seen before. Her heart raced, but she did not panic. Thinking quickly, she directed her pilots to fly in formation while sending drones to flank the machines. At the same time, engineers remotely activated terrain-based traps, creating obstacles that slowed the swarm. The machines faltered. Their programming could not account for such unpredictability. In that moment, Alara realized the truth she had always believed. Humans' greatest strength was their ability to think, adapt, and surprise. By the end of the mission, the colony was saved, and the swarm suffered significant setbacks. The volunteers celebrated, cheering not just for victory, but for the realization that human creativity could overcome superior technology. Alara herself felt a quiet pride, not in the destruction of the machines, but in the courage and ingenuity of her people. As they returned to the palace, Alara gathered her commanders for a debrief. She emphasized lessons, not blame, and encouraged new ideas for the next mission. The army had grown stronger, not just in numbers, but in skill and confidence. Yet the swarm was relentless. Intelligence reports indicated that the machines were learning from each encounter. They avoided traps more effectively and seemed to anticipate some of the army's movements. Alara understood that resting on past victories would be dangerous. She had to continue innovating, thinking ahead, and pushing her people to new heights of creativity and unity. To train her army, she organized simulations that challenged volunteers to solve unexpected problems under pressure. Engineers had to improvise solutions with limited materials. Pilots navigated through complex mazes, and soldiers learned to coordinate silently using signals and intuition. Alara participated in every exercise, demonstrating strategies, offering guidance, and celebrating clever ideas. Her approach transformed the army. Each member learned not just to follow orders, but to think critically, collaborate, and take initiative. Human ingenuity became the army's defining feature. Even volunteers who had never fought in a real conflict discovered their abilities, gaining confidence and courage. During this period, Alara also began building alliances with neighboring colonies. Her reputation inspired trust. Leaders from other planets sent resources, advisors, and volunteers. Together, they shared knowledge, technology, and strategies. Alara realized that humans were strongest when united, combining intelligence, creativity, and determination across many worlds. Despite successes, Alara never underestimated the swarm. She studied patterns, experimented with new tactics, and listened to every member of her army. She knew that machines were capable of adaptation, and humans had to stay unpredictable. Every mission was an opportunity to learn, to innovate, and to demonstrate the unique power of human thought. One night, after a particularly challenging operation, Alara walked alone in the palace gardens. The stars shone above, a reminder of the vastness of space and the challenges ahead. She thought about the human advantage: courage, creativity, intuition, and unity. Machines were fast and strong, but they lacked heart, imagination, and adaptability. Alara understood her role clearly now. She was not just a princess. She was a commander, a strategist, and a symbol of hope. Her people looked to her for guidance, inspiration, and courage. And she would not let them down. Her reflection was interrupted by Jaren, who approached quietly. Your Highness, the volunteers are talking. They say they feel like they can do anything with you leading. They trust your decisions, even in danger. Alara smiled. Then we must not waste that trust. We must continue to learn, to grow, and to face every challenge together. We are small, but we are clever. We are humans, and that is more than enough. In the days that followed, Alara's army continued to expand its reach. Small victories turned into larger operations. Volunteers became skilled soldiers, engineers developed new devices, and pilots mastered maneuvers that the machines could not anticipate. Every success, no matter how small, reinforced the human advantage: adaptability, creativity, and courage. The princess who had once known only palace walls was now a leader commanding a growing army. The Andavar system looked to her for protection, and her influence spread across neighboring colonies. Humans, with all their imperfections and unpredictability, were proving that they could challenge even the most advanced technology. Yet Alara knew the greatest challenges were still ahead. The swarm's central command remained unknown, its full strength untested. She could not afford to grow complacent. Every strategy, every innovation, and every lesson learned would be needed in the battles to come. As Part 2 closed, Alara stood at the palace balcony once again, looking out at the lights of the city and the ships preparing for the next mission. She felt a quiet determination. Humans were clever, adaptable, and united. And under her leadership, they were ready to face anything the universe could throw at them. The war was far from over, but the spark of human ingenuity was burning brighter than ever. And Princess Alara, once a girl confined by walls, had become a commander whose courage and creativity inspired an entire galaxy. The robotic swarm had tested every skill, every tactic, and every ounce of courage that Princess Alara and her army possessed. With each mission, humans had learned, adapted, and grown stronger. Yet the swarm's central command remained a mystery, an unseen force controlling the relentless machines. To truly protect the Andavar system, Alara knew she had to face the source directly. The palace war room buzzed with activity. Maps displayed the positions of human forces and the predicted paths of the swarm. Engineers monitored drones, pilots reported on scouting missions, and volunteers prepared for the coming operation. In the center of it all stood Princess Alara, calm, focused, and determined. "This is the moment we have trained for," she said, her voice steady and clear. "The swarm has been clever, but it cannot match our imagination. It has been strong, but it cannot match our courage. And it has been relentless, but it cannot match our unity. Today, we will face the central command, and we will show the universe what humans are capable of." Her army listened intently. Volunteers who had never faced danger now stood ready, trusting her leadership completely. Soldiers who had once doubted their own abilities now moved with confidence and purpose. The air was charged with anticipation, yet there was no fear, only determination. Alara's plan was bold. Instead of attacking directly, she divided her forces into multiple specialized units. Each unit had a clear role. One would create diversions, another would disable key components of the swarm, while a third, led by Alara herself, would locate and confront the central command. Every detail was meticulously planned, yet flexible enough to allow improvisation, because humans, unlike machines, could adapt in real time. The journey to the swarm's central command was perilous. Massive clusters of machines blocked paths, scanners monitored the skies, and automated defenses detected movement. Yet Alara's army moved with precision. They used camouflage, decoys, and environmental traps to confuse the swarm. Forests, mountains, and rivers, all previously studied, became tools in human hands. During the approach, one of the diversion units encountered a large swarm unexpectedly. Alarms rang and panic threatened to spread, but Alara remained composed. Through secure communication, she directed the unit to use a combination of drone swarms and terrain traps to create confusion. Her clear instructions and trust in her team turned potential disaster into a minor setback. The diversion worked perfectly. Machines were drawn away from the central command, opening a path for Alara's team. The closer they approached, the more complex the defenses became. Automated sentinels patrolled the corridors, and massive gates blocked access to the inner chamber. Yet Alara had anticipated every obstacle. "Humans are clever, adaptable, and united," she reminded her team. Remember, we are not stronger than these machines, but we are smarter. Use your minds, use your training, and trust each other. Inside the central chamber, the scale of the swarm's intelligence became clear. Dozens of machines connected to a central hub, their movements coordinated with near-perfect efficiency. It would have been overwhelming for any ordinary force. But Alara's team was no ordinary force. Using a combination of electronic interference devices, carefully timed drone attacks, and environmental manipulation, they disrupted the central hub's coordination. Machines faltered, their actions slowed, and gaps appeared in their formation. Alara led the final maneuver personally. She piloted a small, nimble ship through narrow corridors, guiding her team with precise directions. Engineers remotely disabled key systems, while soldiers created obstacles that slowed the swarm. Every move required timing, coordination, and adaptability. Every decision mattered. For hours, they fought not with brute force but with strategy and ingenuity. The swarm was powerful, but it could not predict the creativity of humans working together. Finally, the central command system began to shut down. Machines froze, then collapsed, one by one. The humans had prevailed not through sheer strength, but through intelligence, courage, and unity. As the last machine powered down, Alara allowed herself a moment to breathe. Her team cheered, their voices echoing through the chamber. The mission was a success. The swarm, once unstoppable, was now neutralized. And humans had proven that even in the face of superior technology, the human mind and spirit were unmatched. Returning to the Andivar system, Alara and her army were greeted with celebration. Colonies that had feared destruction now rejoiced. Citizens cheered not only for victory, but for the courage and leadership that had made it possible. Alara, once a sheltered princess, was now a hero and a symbol of hope for all humanity. In the following weeks, she focused on rebuilding and strengthening alliances. Colonies shared knowledge, technology, and resources to ensure that humanity would remain prepared for any future threats. Alara encouraged collaboration, innovation, and learning. She created training programs for future leaders, emphasizing creativity, critical thinking, and unity. Her army became a model for interstellar defense, not because it was the largest or most powerful, but because it embodied the human advantage: imagination, courage, and adaptability. Volunteers who had fought alongside her continued to spread her philosophy across the galaxy, inspiring others to believe in the power of humans to overcome challenges. Alara reflected on the journey she had taken. She remembered the girl who had once been confined to palace walls, afraid of responsibility and uncertainty. That girl seemed like a memory from another life. The princess who had refused to run, who had learned to lead, who had faced fear and uncertainty with courage and wisdom, that was the person she had become. But Alara knew her story was not just about personal growth. It was about humanity as a whole. Humans were capable of extraordinary things when they worked together, trusted each other, and believed in their own abilities. The robotic swarm had been a test, a challenge that pushed them to their limits. And humans had not just survived, they had triumphed. Standing on the balcony of the palace once more, looking out at the lights of the city and the stars beyond, Alara felt a deep sense of purpose. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, but humans were ready. They were clever, resilient, and united. And with leadership, courage, and imagination, there was no limit to what they could achieve. Alara knew the future would bring new trials, but she also knew that humanity's greatest strength lay within itself. The human mind, heart, and spirit were powerful tools, capable of turning the impossible into reality. And as long as humans remained brave, creative, and united, they could face anything, even the unknown expanse of the universe. The story of Princess Alara became legend. She was remembered not only as a princess, but as a commander, a strategist, and a symbol of human potential. Her leadership had shown that true power did not come from titles, weapons, or technology alone. It came from courage, imagination, and the ability to inspire others to believe in themselves. In the end, humans learned that even when the odds seemed impossible, their greatest advantage was always within reach. Their ingenuity, their determination, and their unity. And Princess Alara, once a girl behind palace walls, had unlocked that advantage, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. Her journey from sheltered royalty to commanding hero inspired generations, teaching that leadership was not about authority. but about responsibility, courage, and the unwavering belief in what humans could achieve together. And so the Andivar system and its neighboring colonies entered a new era, not one defined by fear, but by hope, collaboration, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. The spark that had begun with one princess had grown into a flame that illuminated the galaxy, a reminder that humans, when united and creative, could overcome any challenge and achieve the extraordinary. Princess Alara had started as just a princess, but she became so much more. She became a leader, a hero, and a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they dared to think, act, and dream beyond the limits of fear.